In history, there have been people who did the impossible. There are some who have become immortal in what they do, and there are others whose impact would forever change the world. In baseball, there was a team who did all these at once, the Swingin A's. Now, for those who don't know, the Swingin A's were the powerhouse Oakland Athletics Major League Baseball team that owned the game in the early 1970s. Picture this, from 1972 to 1975, they ruled the American League, clinching 3 back-to-back-to-back World Series championships in 72, 73, and 74. They weren't just any team, they were the team. The first squad in 2 decades to nab 3 consecutive World Series titles, and they did it with style. In fact, only the New York Yankees had pulled off a three-peat before, and it took until 2000 for it to happen again. No doubt about it, the dynasty of the 70s Swingin A's were one for the ages. Back in the day, the Athletics organization was the toast of Philadelphia. Picture this, 5 World Series appearances in just 9 years. But hold on to your hats, because owner Connie Mack had bigger plans. In the late 1920s, he hit the reset button, dismantling and rebuilding the team, which led to even more World Series glory. Unfortunately, though, all good things must come to an end. So by the 1930s, the Athletics were quickly sliding down the standings. 3rd place in 1933 was as good as it got for over 3 decades. And when Mack retired in 1950, it was like the beginning of the end. The team packed their bags and headed for greener pastures in Kansas City, but even that didn't do much to change their fortunes. Then came Charlie O. Finley, the insurance salesman with big dreams and even bigger schemes. He shook things up, changing the team's colors and secretly plotting to move them out of town. While he was rebuilding, Finley was also assembling a squad of young guns that would soon turn heads. Names like Bert Campaneris, Raleigh Fingers, Catfish Hunter, and more joined the fray, setting the stage for a new era of athletics baseball. Fast forward to 1968, and the team made the move to Oakland, where they finally found their footing. A winning season, their first since 1952, gave fans something to cheer about. And with the newly formed American League West division in sight, the Athletics were on the rise. For them, it was like they had found their rhythm again. The road was still rough, but with a new manager on board, it looked like things were going to change for good. Under the leadership of Dick Williams, the team found its stride, earning back-to-back winning seasons for the first time in decades, with stars like Reggie Jackson blasting homers left and right. And by the end of the 60s, it looked like their fortune was about to change for good. The parts had been assembled, and the machine was ready to roll out again. Of course, new manager Dick Williams was no stranger to the game, having logged 13 years as a pro ball player before stepping into the manager's box. His journey included a stint with the Kansas City team, giving him a taste of what it was like to play in the big leagues. But it was with the Boston Red Sox that Williams truly made his mark, because having led them to an American League pennant in 1967, he earned a reputation for his aggressive management style. His strategy? Simple yet effective. We pitch and we catch the ball. So, obviously, this fire was what he brought to the A's when he took over. It looked too simple, but it was genius. With a whopping 101 victories in 1971, the team had their best performance in 4 decades. That year, their offense was firing on all cylinders, ranking in the top 5 for hits and home runs. And let's not forget their pitching, which turned out to be the second fewest runs allowed in the league, with a stellar team ERA of 3.05. But then, do you want to guess who the real standout was? It was Vida Blue. You see, after 2 quiet seasons, Blue exploded onto the scene with a dominating 24-8 record and a microscopic 1.82 ERA. Plus, with 8 shutouts under his belt, he snagged both the AL Cy Young Award and the AL Most Valuable Player Award. However, despite their regular season dominance, the Athletics stumbled in the playoffs, falling to the Baltimore Orioles in a heartbreaking sweep. Thankfully, they weren't done yet, so in a bold move to bolster their pitching, they traded away Rick Monday for Ken Holtzman. And as you'd expect, this move set the stage for what would be another thrilling chapter in athletics history. After rebuilding the team and making major changes to the roster, Dick Williams thought it was time to take his boys to glory, and boy did he do that. The team's path was littered with crazy numbers and unimaginable exploits. And yeah, 1971 was a good season, no doubt, but in 1972, the team defied logic. In fact, the 1972 season was a whirlwind of excitement for the Athletics. That year, despite fewer hits than their rivals, they blazed a trail with a league-leading 134 home runs, lighting up the scoreboard with the second most runs in the American League, which was a whopping 604. And then, how about pitching? They had a stingy 2.58 team ERA and allowed just 457 runs. Indeed, their numbers were impressive, but they still needed to show the world what they could do. They destroyed expectations and left teams wondering what was happening. Yet the real showdown came in the American League Championship Series against the Detroit Tigers, led by the fiery Billy Martin. It was a nail-biter, going the full 5 games. The A's struck first, with Rollie Fingers sealing the deal in an epic extra-inning showdown, but the Tigers roared back, taking Game 3 with a dominant 3-0 victory. Game 4 was a heartbreaker for the A's, as a late collapse squandered a 3-1 lead, sending the series to a decisive Game 5. Then, despite losing star player Reggie Jackson to injury, the A's rallied behind a clutch RBI single from Gene Tenace. Plus, with Blue taking over on the mound, they held on for a hard-fought victory, clinching their first pennant since 1931. It was such a dramatic victory, but it was worth all of it, because soon it was time for the ultimate showdown, which was the 1972 World Series against the Cincinnati Reds. Now, this series was truly epic. Plus, with contrasting styles and larger-than-life personalities, it was an absolute clash of titans. In fact, that whole series would soon be deservedly dubbed the Hares versus the Big Squares, with the Athletics embracing their role as the former. There was no doubt about the finals being an epic showdown in the 1972 World Series from all indications. After all, the Cincinnati Reds, who would later go on to be known as the Big Red Machine, were also having a wild run of their own. And as you'd expect, they came prepared for everything thrown at them. Believe this when we say it, that particular World Series was a battle of titans, with both teams hungry for victory. The series was a roller coaster ride from start to finish, with 6 of the 7 games decided by just 1 run. And who made that run? Well, we're about to get into it. In Game 1, Gene Tenace stole the show with 2 clutch home runs to lead Oakland to victory. Joe Rudi followed suit in Game 2, launching a homer of his own and making a spectacular catch to secure another win for the A's. But the Reds weren't going down without a fight. They bounced back to take Game 3. Still, Tenace had other plans, smashing his 3rd homer of the series in Game 4 and igniting a 9th-inning rally that sealed the deal for Oakland. Game 5 saw Tenace shine once again with his 4th homer, but the Reds rallied behind their core players to secure a crucial win. And moving on, the tables turned in Game 6, with the Reds dominating to force a decisive Game 7. With everything on the line, the tension was palpable. But the A's came out swinging and took an early lead due to clutch hits from Tenace and Sal Bando. Well, of course, the Reds fought back, but it wasn't enough. So in the end, it was Oakland who emerged victorious, clinching the series with a hard-fought 3-2 win. And with that, the Athletics etched their names into baseball history, cementing their status as champions and leaving fans on the edge of their seats until the very last out. It was truly a wild run for them, and everyone thought that was it. After all, they couldn't get lucky twice, right? Well, wrong. Because guess what? These guys went on to do a three-peat instead. In the thrilling 1973 season, the Oakland Athletics brought their A-game, scoring a whopping 758 runs to lead the American League. And they were led by the unstoppable Reggie Jackson, who clinched the MVP title with his league-leading stats. The A's were obviously at their best. Their offense was unstoppable, ranking at the top for RBIs, while their pitching staff shone through with a stellar ERA of 3.29. But it wasn't an easy ride to the top, as they faced tough competition from the Baltimore Orioles in the playoffs. Just like the previous year, this series was also a nail-biting affair, with the teams trading blows in a fierce battle for victory. Ultimately, it was the A's who emerged triumphant, clinching their 2nd consecutive pennant and setting the stage for a showdown with the New York Mets in the World Series. Of course, the Mets put up a tough fight, but the A's proved to be too much to handle yet again, with Rollie Fingers delivering a standout performance to secure the championship title. And with another World Series win under their belt, the Athletics solidified their place among baseball's elite. But then, tensions were beginning to brew behind the scenes, as manager Dick Williams grew weary of owner Charlie Finley's antics and resigned. Despite the discord, however, the A's continued to dominate on the field, racking up an impressive 90 wins in the 1974 season. Oakland faced Baltimore for the 2nd year in a row and easily steamrolled them in the ALCS 3-1. Next up were the Los Angeles Dodgers. Despite statements from the Dodgers front office that only 2 of the A's players were good enough to be on their team, the A's made quick work of the Dodgers, beating them in 5 games and clinching their 3rd championship in a row. Sadly, though, in 1975, their quest for a 4th straight championship was cut short in the playoffs, as they suffered a crushing defeat at the hands of the Boston Red Sox. Despite the loss, there was nothing that could take away this team's dominance in the 70s. They had rewritten the history of baseball in that era. Fueled by a powerhouse pitching staff, the Athletics were renowned for their ability to defend precarious leads with unwavering resolve. And it's why, despite modest run totals in their World Series runs, they consistently found a way to emerge victorious in an era defined by fierce competition, and their antics always sent serious shivers down the spines of all their opponents. In fact, no team was comfortable with the idea of going against the Swingin A's teams of the 70s. There's no doubt about this one, the legacy of the Swingin A's lives on in the baseball world even till today. And to put it into a better perspective, you'd be amazed to learn that 4 of its shining stars have earned their rightful place in the hallowed halls of the National Baseball Hall of Fame. These legends of the game include Reggie Jackson, Raleigh Fingers, Catfish Hunter, and Dick Williams. Even decades later, Sparky Anderson, who was the mastermind behind the Big Red Machine, which obviously was a strong competition against this team, hailed the Swingin A's 1972 World Series as one of the greatest matchups in baseball history. It was a clash of titans that captivated fans and players alike. As for the players, Reggie Jackson, who was the heart and soul of that Swingin A's dynasty, fondly recalled his time with the team, declaring them the best of their generation. According to Jackson, his triumphs on the field with the A's dwarfs even his later success with the New York Yankees. You see, during the electrifying era of the 1970s in Major League Baseball, the Swingin A's had a run of unmatched record and success. And while they may not have made the most World Series appearances of the decade, just like their biggest competition, the Cincinnati Reds, did, the team's dominance was unparalleled in every sense of the word. This athletics team emerged victorious in more World Series than any other team at the time, a feat made even more impressive by their flawless record, which involved never tasting defeat on baseball's grandest stage. Alongside the Pittsburgh Pirates, the Swingin A's stood as the only team in the decade to achieve multiple appearances in the series without a single loss. Moreover, their divisional dominance was unrivaled, as they clinched the American League West title for an unprecedented 5 seasons in a row. At this point, we all just have to agree to this fact. The Swingin A's were truly the team.